Hey, thanks for joining me. I'm going to go through a video and actually kind of show you the setup for creating an active cluster between two Pure Storage arrays. My name is Kenneth Ray. I'm an SE with Pure Storage here in St. Louis, Missouri. And I want to show you exactly how easy it is to set up active cluster with Pure Storage, and also show you exactly how easy it is to have a stretched cluster within VMware. So in this environment, I've actually got two Pure Storage arrays set up, Flash Array 1, Flash Array 2, and I've got my VMware environment, and you can see that I'm already logged into the HTML5 client for vCenter. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create a data store. And with the Pure Storage plugin for vCenter, I can actually create that data store from within vCenter. Click Create Data Store, give it a name, we'll call it DS01, specify a capacity, and then which array. Again, like I mentioned, I've got two arrays here, Flash Array 1, Flash Array 2. We'll create this data store on Flash Array 1. I'll hit Create. It'll create the volume on the array, provision it to the ESX hosts that are in that cluster, scan the bus, and actually mount that data store. Now what I'm going to do, I've got a VM that's sitting here running, and I'm going to actually go ahead and migrate it, change the data store to this new data store that I created on Flash Array 1, DS01, hit next, finish, and then I'll bring up the task here so we can see that it's actually relocated it to DS01. So now I've got a VM. It's actually running right now and powered on, and it's running on that data store that I created off of Flash Array 1. So now what I want to do is I want to go set up the clustering between Flash Array 1 and Flash Array 2. So I'll select Flash Array 1, and I'll come in, and I can see that if I go here, I can actually see that I've got my DS01 volume already created. In order to make Flash Array 1 aware of Flash Array 2, click on Array, and I've got a little, an icon down here where I can actually specify arrays that are connected to this particular one. So in order to do that, I first go to Flash Array 2, and there is a connection string, so a connection key rather, that I can get and actually make Flash Array 1 aware of Flash Array 2. So I'll come in here, I'll click Add, I'll put in the management IP, or in this case the fully qualified domain name, Flash Array 2. Specify that I want to do synchronous replication. This is what will allow it to actually be an active cluster between both arrays. So a volume could be stretched across both arrays. It can be active, written, and read from on both arrays. And synchronous replication, of course, is what facilitates that. So I'll go ahead and paste the key that I gathered from the other array. I'll hit connect. It'll locate Flash Array 2. And I can see that it's actually connected, it's online, and it's set up for synchronous replication. So now I've set up, if I jump back over to Flash Array 2, I'll see that it actually shows Flash Array 1 connected as well, and that again, it's set up for synchronous replication. So the next thing I need to do in the Pure world is to create what we refer to as a pod. And a pod is just a logical container that allows you to move volumes that you've created, data stores in this particular example, that you've created into this logical container, and then stretch that from one array to the other. And I'll show you how to do that. So on Flash Array 1, I'll click on Pods, create a new one. We'll call it Pod 01, hit Create. Now when I click on it to dive into it, here's where I can see, okay, of course this pod already resides on Flash Array 1. The next thing I want to do is move in an existing volume. Of course, we want to move in DS01 because this is the data store. This is the volume that houses the VM that we've got running that we'd like to stretch to both arrays. I'll hit move in. Now, if you'll notice, the name of that volume changes. It's called DS01, but it's prefaced by the name of the pod. So that's how it's referred to as Pod 01 DS01. Now, again, this pod is a logical container that contains this volume, and currently it just resides on Flash Array 1. What we'll do now is we'll add flash array 2, hit add. It knows that I've got this array set up to be synchronously replicated to. So eventually it'll come online. What'll happen is at first it brings itself into the pod. It'll be offline. It'll go through a process where it'll actually sync the data from array 1, array 2, and you'll see the resyncing going. And these are basically asynchronous replications getting the second array seeded and up to the capacity that this particular volume contains. Once it's in sync, every write that's to this volume on flash array 1 will be automatically synchronously replicated to the second array, and writes won't be acknowledged to flash array 1 until they've been written to flash array 2. So we can see that we're going through the sync process right now. If I jump over to flash array 2, we'll see that that pod now exists here on flash array 2. It didn't exist before, but because of the replication it does now, because it resides on both arrays, flash array 1 and flash array 2, and now it shows that it's online. Of course, if I click into it, I'll see the volume pod 01, and if I go to my list of volumes, I'll see again pod 01 DS01. So now this volume resides in both locations. They're in sync, online, and any write to that data store from flash array 01 gets synchronously replicated to flash array 02. So now what I want to do is I want to make it so that these ESX clusters, these hosts within this cluster, actually have visibility to this volume, to this data store from both flash array 1 and flash array 2. Because right now, if I go look at example of ESX A01 here, if I go to configure and I go to storage devices and I click on DS01, so this is the storage device for this data store DS01, and if I look at the paths, I can see that I'm actually got 2 connections to this volume off of this array. Now, both of these connections are just to flash array 1. If I were to extend this target out here, we could actually see the IP address of 102 and 103. And if I jump into flash array 1, I go to settings, I look at the network, I can see that the iSCSI is 102 and 103. So I know that this data store is coming off of just flash array 1. So if I go over to flash array 2, here's that volume. Here's where I can actually just connect it to a host group. We'll do it to the ESX host. Hit connect. Now this actually provisions that stretched volume to that cluster. If I go back over here, I can see that it's still not there. But if I scan the bus and rescan for storage, hit OK, it'll actually rescan the bus. After it scans the bus, and you can see it doing a refresh, now I've got 4 paths, and I can see that in addition to my 102 and 103 connection, I've also got a connection to 112 and 113. And if I go over to flash array 2 and go to settings, look at the network, I can see that 112 and 113 are the iSCSI interfaces for this flash array. So now I've got multiple paths to this. Now, if I wanted to, I could leave it like this, of course, and now I've got access to this data store, to this VM from both arrays. If one of them were to go down, it would continue functioning and things would stay online. Now, normally you want to do this across 2 sites, 2 remote sites. In this particular instance, these arrays are sitting close to one another, hence the replication was really quick. Now what I want to do is actually show you that I can actually take this array, this volume away from flash array 01, and this VM and this data store will stay online. So if I go to flash array 1, I go to storage, I locate that volume. We know that it's called pod DS01. I can say, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to disconnect it from these hosts. Hit disconnect. If I go back over to ESX, if I refresh, I could have given it a second as well, you'll see now these paths are dead. So I don't have access to this particular data store off of this flash array any longer, but yet the VM's still up and running. The data store is still available because it fully resides on flash array 2. Of course, if I scan the bus, rescan for storage, it'll actually see that those paths aren't there, and the only paths that are available are the ones to flash array 2. So I have easily migrated live a data store that's hosting a VM from flash array 1 to flash array 2, and did it in just a matter of minutes. It's very easy to set this up. It's really easy to migrate VMs from site A to site B, and for business continuity and disaster recovery purposes, it really makes high availability even greater because of the fault domains residing in separate data centers. Anyway, I hope this was helpful, and if you have any questions on this or like me to dive into it further, I would welcome any questions. Thanks.